Well, you know what they say, Joe. You walk down the right back alley in Sin City and you can find anything. Boom, 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 boom.
Sin City was Tom's pick for this week, and next week we're going to be covering the sequel. Uh, so Sin City made its debut in a fifth anniversary special for Dark Horse Presents, which was an anthology comic, and it was a good one. But they would get people to buy it because they would have like a Predator story in there, or an Alien story, which were all the fucking rage for comics at the time. And then
Well, that was their big thing. That was Dark Horse's big thing they had. The video games and shit were coming out at that time.
there was some other shit that would come out in Dark Horse Presents too. That like The Mask, that was some badass shit. And then they made a goofy like stupid comedy out of that shit when it got the theater or the movie treatment. Uh, a lot of shit that I liked in Dark Horse Presents. And when this came out, like Frank Miller hadn't done anything for a while. You know, he had, of course, like struck gold with Dark Knight Returns, and that's still a badass story. I think I'll get to Frank Miller a little later. But then he did a run on Daredevil that was
And this was at a time when Frank Miller was coming back from doing the movie stuff. Like after RoboCop and shit, they fucked him over, so he was coming back to comics.
I don't know that they fucked him over. His script was kind of shit. Uh, he comes and does this, and he does a total noir style, just like an Alex Toth, black and white. Let's heavy play on shadow, and even though shit like this had been done before, it hadn't been done in a comic that was easy to buy like Dark Horse Presents. So it was serialized in that and introduced us to Sin City and this guy named Marv, just a big fucking hulking uh, massive destruction is what he is. He's not very smart, he just like, hey, don't fuck with him is his thing.
He's what would be referred to as a fucking nut.
Yeah, he's a psycho, and it's about him being with a prostitute. Somebody kills this prostitute, while he's in bed with her, doesn't even notice. Whoever killed her is such a badass, and now he's framed for the murder. So that's one story that's adapted in this one. And then when this story first came out, it didn't have a name. I know it has a name now. It's just called Sin City. And with the success of this, Frank Miller went and did more. He did, what was the one? That Yellow Bastard is another one that's adapted here. And then is it
Big fat kill.
the Big Fat Kill?
And the customer's always right.
Yeah, yeah, that one was like in a special that was just like a Marv story and then this story. And I guess with the Yellow Bastard, they added like another color. They would add yellow in there for whenever that character came out. And every once in a while, they would have red, for like somebody's lipstick or something. And hey, shit, it's picked up by Troublemaker Studios. Robert Rodriguez, a big fan of not just the comic, but Frank Miller. And invites Frank Miller along to have some input. And they did a fucking bang up job of trying.
That's technically not what happened. So about 2002, Robert Rodriguez kept hounding Frank Miller. Hey, dog, let me make this movie. Let me make this movie. So they have a meeting. And old Rob, he says, look, I already filmed some shit. Look at this. Isn't that dope? Frank Miller's like, yeah, it is. All right, you can do it. But I want to co-direct. And he says, all right, let's do it. So that's how that came together.
So not too hard to co-direct something that's pretty much going by your comic, exactly. Your comic is pretty much the storyboards. So pretty easy job for old Frank Miller. And like I was saying, this looks a lot like the comic. You know, it's fucking great how good this shit looks. There's some panels in the comic that like when Marv like jumps up and kicks his way through the police car. You know, I think that panel in the comics just fucking badass, and they pulled that shit off, even though it's just like a blink of an eye. That shit looks great. There's other scenes that had they not done it in this stylized way, it would have looked real fucking stupid. You know, if they tried to make it just like a straight movie, there's no way any of this shit would have worked.
Yeah, everything was shot on a green screen besides a couple sets, but then still there was a green screen replacement in it. So if it wasn't so heavily stylized, a whole lot of this would look like.
Yeah, Mickey Rourke plays Marv, Violent Marv, that's his name. He's fucking great, and I think this was a big comeback role for Mickey Rourke. And yeah, he just nails this shit. You know, they do the makeup, make him look like Frank Miller drew him in the comic. We'll get some more of that shit next week. So come back and listen to this one because you'll hear disparities between this one and that one. Not only that, but Frank Miller now and then or whatever. What's the second one? That's the one with Bruce Willis, the yellow bastard.
I think it's fucking customers always right, yellow bastard, Hargaby, big fat kill, yellow bastard, customers always right.
All right.
So it's like four stories, but it's fucking chopped up weird.
The one with Bruce Willis, it's good. I mean, it's got some cool shit in it, but this is where you start to like listen to the dialogue and think, fuck, that sounds horrible. You know, and it worked in the comic, you know, because the comic it's a different medium, and you know, it sounds okay there, but man, when you say this shit out loud or when somebody's trying to use it as dialogue, fuck, does that sound lousy? Does this sound like, what is this, a fucking comic book?
Yeah, I've watched that. This is one of the movies I've probably seen the most because this is one of my favorite movies. Is it still? We'll get to that, but this is the first time I was like, oh, was dialogue's a little cheese dick. I guess being the neo-noir, whatever the fuck you want to call it, it fits, but still stuck out. Same thing with the green screen. This is the first time I watched it, and I was just like, yeah, it just looks like a bunch of people on a green screen.
See, the thing about that is it looks uneven. You know, there's moments where it looks really, really good, and then there's moments where it's like, hey, what the fuck just happened here? Like, it's like different movies, and if he filmed it at different times or whatever, then maybe that accounts for some of it. Or just maybe
Mickey Rourke never met Jessica Alba or Elijah Wood. They were all filmed separately, and Brittany Murphy was just shot by herself. She was never interacting with fucking anybody in any of her scenes. So it was all just come on the green screen when you can, and we'll composite you in there.
Yeah, the whole story with Bruce Willis, you know, he is hunting down a pedophile and is trying to save the latest girl that he's kidnapped. And so, of course, Sin City's a corrupt place, corrupt police, so he has to turn against his partner to go after this guy who's heavily connected with the Rourke family, which runs Sin City. And he saves the girl, shoots the guy in the fucking hand off, shoots Pecker off, and
took his weapons away, you see.
Yeah. And then he is arrested himself, and he's framed for, you know, kidnapping, raping the little girl or whatever. And,
not just her, but all of them.
Yeah, you know, so like
all of his victims.
Like Marv's story, he's framed by the police, And then he finally gets out, and he goes back, and he's because he feels that or he's been led to believe that the girl Nancy is in danger. Finds her, and she's a stripper now, and I don't know. They are after them, and he kind of is getting close to Nancy, and it's real fucking weird.
Sure is there, Joe. It sure the fuck is. No, 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 don't kiss him, no.
Yeah. Strange shit. And then the next story is this guy, and I don't know, he's just a fucking tough guy, and I don't know, runs afoul of Benicio del Toro, and they're both fucking the same chick, but she doesn't want to be with Benicio anymore. He beats up Benicio. Benicio chases him into Lowtown. Is that what it's called? What?
Old Town.
Old Town. And this
Old Town Buffet.
just called it Ho Town because this is where all the hookers are, and all the hookers run this part of the town, and they're all.
I call it Stranglerville.
Yeah, they're all badasses. So him and they kill Benicio, and he's a cop. Oh, and there's a whole big thing where now that they've killed the cop, they can go in and take over and treat the whores like whores. And they don't want that to happen. It's a weird story too. It's there's some cool looking shit in it, but there's a lot of it that's like, what the fuck's going on here? That's just fucking stupid. That's if you stop and think about it, don't just have fun with it, I guess. And then the wraparound story is just about an assassin. It's that takes place at the beginning and wraps out a thing that happens in this other story. But this movie's what, 22 years old?
19.
19. Okay, so we're not really fucking spoiling anything, because if you haven't seen it by now, fuck you. But Tom, now on reflection, now that you've seen this for the 16th time or so, how do you feel now?
Well, you didn't really talk about The Hard Goodbye, which is fucking awesome and one of the dopest fucking pieces of movie I've ever seen in my fucking goddamn life. That shit is fucking awesome. Like, The Hard Goodbye is so fucking dope. Marv's fucking awesome. Mickey Rourke plays that crazy motherfucker awesome. Like, everything about that shit is just so fucking awesome and badass. When he handcuffs Heaven, calls him a squirrely bitch or whatever, and punches him in his cocksucker, you're just like, oh shit, here we go. And then he saws that motherfucker up so his dog could eat him, cuts his head off. He never screams. Then he goes to murder the priest. Shit is fucking awesome, dude. And fucking just puking up blood in the electric chair. Dude is a fucking badass. That shit is fucking awesome. Oh, dude, the whole thing. I can't say enough good shit about The Hard Goodbye. Like, if it was just that, and it was like an hour and 20 minutes of just that, that would probably be my number one fucking best movie ever. Unfortunately, we got this other stuff surrounding it that, it's okay. If The Hard Goodbye wasn't there, I definitely wouldn't care as much about this movie as I do. Like, everything's cool. The big fat kill gets old after a while. I don't really like Clive Owen that much, but I mean, it's still cool to look at, and there's these cool gags and shit, and you got the white cum blood flying all over, and just all these cool visuals to look at. So, I mean, at least you got that shit, and then you got fucking Bruce Willis fighting Mr. Lemonhead or whatever the fuck. He just punches his fucking skull into nothing. That's fucking awesome. But there's still a lot of stuff in there that's just like, this isn't nowhere as good as that Marv stuff. Let's get more of that fucking Marv stuff. Where's that shit at?
Yeah, and that's true.
But
You know, I lost interest in the comics the more stories were released. I just, didn't give a fuck. Uh, there's one, and this guy like has an acid trip or something. One whole issue is a fucking acid trip, and I didn't even finish that story. I don't even remember what that fucking was called, but that one had color during the acid trip, Tom. Yeah, the stories as they progress, they become just like, well, fuck, it's like you already shot your wad,
excuse me.
and nothing's gonna compare to that, But yeah, it is a cool movie to look at, but goddamn, does Frank Miller hate women? Like all the women in this are victims or
Well, I
fucking.
mean, to be fair, a lot of the fucking dudes are victims too.
Yeah, but they're victims, they're whores, and damsels in distress. That's all they are. And then all of a sudden, you have like some.
But that's kind of the environment that these stories take place in.
Mm,
It's supposed to be like a sleazy fucking old timey shit. Like
and then
that's
samurai bitch out of nowhere just kicking everybody.
why isn't her name Miha? Why is it Miho?
I still like it, but yeah, I definitely got some issues with it now. It's been quite a while since I see it, but seeing that, I start to think about Frank Miller's comics and like, well, shit, okay, in Dark Knight Returns, there were guys with knots with swastikas on their foreheads, and swastika throwing stars and shit, and in and there was whores in that one too. And there's in his run on Daredevil, Born Again, he turns longtime what's her name, Karen Page, Daredevil's former girlfriend, into a strung out whore that went and did pornos because she was strung out and stuff. And yeah, and then his shit gets more and more problematic as he goes on. His art, which like he did a book called Ronin, which is a samurai book set in the future.
Oh yeah, about Ninja Turtles.
Fucking badass. It is great, and he should sue the Ninja Turtle guys. Did some covers for them too. Yeah, his stuff after Sin City, it got worse and worse. His art fucking turned horrendous. We've talked about his Spawn Batman thing, which that's one of the worst fucking comics ever. And I think the worst thing that this movie did is it allowed Frank Miller to direct, and he went on and directed The Spirit, which I never wanted to watch because I really like those old fucking timey Will Eisner comics. And that's just, hey, this looks like Sin City. No fucking interest in watching this because this is not what this character is about. Fuck it, and fuck Frank Miller. We'll talk more about his decline next week because hey, where'd you go? There you go. I watched like 15 minutes accidentally of the sequel, so I could say, I'll save it for next week. But yeah, this still holds up, most of the way. It's still a good movie. I wouldn't like tell anybody not to watch it, but yeah, there's some shit that definitely didn't age well.
You ask me what do I think about it now? About the same. Like I was never over the moon about the stories Marv wasn't in.
Yeah.
But god damn, A Hard Goodbye is so fucking dope. That'll just make me forget. Man, if it's part of the movie, fuck it. If I gotta watch the movie to see this shit, fuck it.
Probably
if you would
in my storage in Corpus, I have both of those figures they made of Marv, the one that has like his silhouette behind him that was in brick, and then I have the one where he's in the electric chair.
I got that shit.
Gotcha, pansies.
That shit shakes hard as fuck.
Yeah, my daughter told me she used to get scared of it when I would flip the little the little thing.
Yeah, I got all the fucking NECA Marv Sin City figures when they came out, the talking 18-inch one, and then all the different variants and shit. Yeah, dude, fucking goddamn, that shit is just so fucking dope. But I think the other ones are all right. It's cool. It's cool and shit. Like, yeah, that's all right, but I'm not as over the moon about those as I am a hard goodbye. So if you asked me what my rating would be before I watched it, I would say 5 stars, baby. Woo! But now after watching it again and the dialogue kind of making me like, and noticing how it's on a green screen and shit, 4.5, which isn't bad, but still, woo! So, I mean, I'll give it to it. I'll bump it down a little bit, but man, if it was just the hard goodbye #1 movie of all time, shit's just so fucking dope. This fucking cannibalistic little prick's gonna get his ass whooped, son.
Yeah, it doesn't say anything the whole fucking thing, but they make
He
him look
never screams. He
anyway.
never screams.
Just glasses reflecting and shit, and him just smiling. It's And then you got Carla Gugino's nudity, which we didn't even mention. That's top notch shit right there.
I agree, man. If she would have just lifted one up and went to town, fuck.
Yeah.
So yeah, good shit. I'd recommend watching it for sure.